I believe the synopsis from my memory. Hey y'all, my name is Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today. And for this video, we're going to be talking about the books that I want to get read in 2024. Before I get to anything bookish though, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below, as well as tell me in the comments what is some sort of TBR you have for the year. Do you have like a 12 Recs by 12 friends, a 24 and 24? These books will self-destruct. Give me a book that's on one of those. All right, so this is me being proactive and mixing two different lists together for a single video, but this is going to be sort of like my 2024 TBR. Most people tend to do like a 24 and 24, or you know, they've been increasing it as the years go on, but personally, I just don't have faith in myself to do that. And I also get a little nervous of structuring my TBR that much. Rather, I have two lists that come out to 22 books for 2024. Irony is not lost on me. Starting at the top, I have a 10 books TBR list that I made myself. Then I also have a 12 books by 12 friends list. These 10 books are kind of more geared for my own taste. They are specified for like videos or anticipated releases, things that I'm really looking forward to. Whereas the 12 Recs, that's gonna be kind of an experiment because some of these absolutely are super up my alley. There are a few on here that are very much outside my comfort zone, and I'm really intrigued to see where this goes. But I also think it'll be a lot of fun, so perhaps I'll have some experimenting videos for that. First off, let's go ahead and dive into my 10 books list. I didn't even complete last year's 10 books list, so I do have a few rollovers. Starting at the top, I have The Dark Tide by 𝗖cie když𝘁. This was a 5-star prediction, and I put it on that 10 books list, hoping that would push me to read it, and I still didn't, so I'm doing it again. This actually is on my TBR for January, as I mentioned in that video, so here's hoping I'll finally get it knocked off. This was a mystery book that Josh was kind enough to pick up for me, I think for like our anniversary? I never heard about it previously, but I believe it's following this girl who lives on an island where every year they sacrifice someone to the witch queen, and one year her brother is chosen, but rather than him going, she volunteers herself. She comes to know the witch, and there's actually a bit of like a sapphic romance going on. I'm very excited to get to it. I read in some reviews that it has really lyrical writing, which is very much up my alley. I love the aesthetic of the book. I love the cover. It's got these gorgeous black pages for the title. Absolutely beautiful. Hopefully I will get this read this month. Fingers crossed. We'll see. Ooh. Another rollover that is also a 5-star prediction is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This one is the start of a duology, which was kind of the reason I hadn't really picked it up, because I was doing my best not to start new series, rather to focus on other series I was in the middle of last year. I did pretty well, and now that means I can actually start new series, and I'm determined to stay on top of them and get them finished. So a duology is a perfect opportunity for that. This one is a Little Mermaid retelling that I believe has some basis in Yoruba mythology from West Africa, which is super cool. The main character is a mermaid who is often tasked with collecting the souls of people who die in shipwrecks, except one time she ends up finding a boy and actually saving his life, but that ends up having way bigger repercussions than either of them are expecting. Lou at Lou Reading Things has a really interesting commentary video on it, so I'll put a link to that in the cards. Highly recommend giving it a watch, and that's definitely something I'm gonna have floating around in the back of my mind while I'm reading this. The final one of the rollovers is the oldest book on my TBR. This is kind of one that I try and do every year since I started this, you know, make progress on these backlist ones that I've been wanting to get around to for years. Clearly it didn't work last year, but that was Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. Now, this one is a horror story that I've actually heard pretty much only positive things on. It's following a person who is a collector of these really macabre things, tries to buy a suit that somebody had died in or something like that. I don't really remember. It's been a very long time since I've looked at the synopsis. But seeing as how I've talked about a lot now that I really want to try and prioritize horror books more, perfect opportunity to do that. Maybe try out some Joe Hill, see if it's an author that I might be interested in, and also finally get it knocked off my TBR. This next one is one that I definitely will be getting read here soon, not only because I have an advanced reader copy of it on NetGalley, it also will be finishing out a series, and I have a video plan wrapped around it. So that is How You Get the Girl by Anita Kelly. Seeing as how I absolutely adored Something Wild and Wonderful from this author last year, I have high hopes. This one is a sapphic romance, however, following a coach out of high school and falls for one of the players' moms? I think that's it, or aunt, something along those lines. I'm very interested to see with this sort of a setup. Sports romances aren't something I read a ton of, but Obviously, like, this isn't gonna be at the forefront, but sports will be involved. I'm really intrigued to see how I do with that sort of subgenre. On top of that, Anita Kelly's character work is fantastic, so I really want to see more of it, and hopefully this will also be another 5-star. This next one, I think this was actually on my 10 books for like 2021 or 2022, and that is Tempest of Tea by 𝗖cie heç𝘁. The publication date for this book has been pushed back a few times because the author got married, but it is supposed to come out February 20th, and I am so excited. Seeing as how 𝗖cie heç𝘁's previous fantasy series is one of my all-time favorites, The Sands of Aralia, I'm really, really hopeful that this will also be a 5-star. This is gonna be the start of a new series. I don't remember exactly the synopsis, but the tagline that sold me on this was heist with vampires and a tea room. Sounds lovely. I cannot wait. I'm so intrigued to see where this goes, and I can't wait to get it in my hands. Another anticipated release, also coming from a author that I've really enjoyed previously, but this one is going to be finishing out a separate fantasy series, Mirrored Heavens by Rebecca Roanhorse. First off, this cover is absolutely stunning. From the cover, I assumed that we were going to be following the character who is Teak, very reminiscent to Sirens, and she has been my favorite throughout the series, 𝗖cie. Very much chaotic bisexual energy, but she is so much fun. I've really loved how Roanhorse has handled this world, which is based on pre-Columbian Americas, but also the political intrigue and scheming that happens on top of the religious themes that are tied in with that political scheming is just so up my alley. Cannot wait to see how the series ends. I'm so excited. One that I don't need to wait for, I literally just need to go to the library and pick it up, is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which is a rollover as a previous DNF that I've been wanting to get back to it. I guess less of a DNF, more of a not right now. I've tried to read this book on 2 separate occasions. Each time was in November, where I was trying to focus on nonfiction and then also getting really excited for my reread month. And I think that was the issue. I think that just kind of kept shooting myself in the foot, that there was too many other things distracting me from this book, even though the idea of it is very intriguing. We're following a woman who, when she was a child, was destined that her brother would have all this fame and glory and she would have nothingness. After her brother ends up dying, she takes on his role and ends up becoming a bit of a war hero, if I believe the synopsis from my memory. This kept being sold as like Mulan meets Song of Achilles, but I've also heard not to read it with those sort of expectations. So I don't want to sell that to you either, but I am really excited to try it out. Historical fantasy is something I do really like. It's just I have to be in the mood for it. And I haven't been the last 2 times I tried, but I want to read this book. I really do. Next up is one that I absolutely have to get to because this author's prior work that kind of was along the same lines was my best book of last year. Divine Might by Natalie Haynes. I adored Pandora's Jar, in which Natalie Haynes was looking at the Greek myths, following different women from those stories and analyzing how each of those women were presented in the different works they're seen in, talking about their stories, how they were showcased in art, and how their stories have tied into media and stories today. I loved that book. It was fantastic. This one is focusing on the goddesses in Greek myth, and I think it's kind of going along the same look. I cannot wait. I'm so excited. Focusing on the goddesses whose prowess, passions, jealousies, and desires rival those of their male kin. I am really excited for the Athene chapter because sometimes how she's presented I really like, but often if you look at the original myths, she's not a girl's girl, I'll put it that way. So I know I'm gonna absolutely adore this. And that's why I had to buy it whenever I saw it for buy one, get one half off at Barnes & Noble. Another previous 5-star author that I really wanna revisit is Rachel Harrison. So I put Such Sharp Teeth on this TBR, seeing as how I do own it. I also own The Return, but that one I've heard a little bit more mixed things on. This one, I think, following a character who is slowly turning into a werewolf. Rachel Harrison's work is kind of sold as cozy horror, and obviously, seeing as how you can see, I adored Cackle. That's why it's presented on my shelves. So I have very high hopes for this one as well. I really adored the vibes in Cackle, and I I've heard that this one kind of has a similar feel. I think it also has some sister feelings going on there, so I'm interested to see that as well. I'm really hoping this is 5 stars. Maybe rather than reading Cackle again in October, this year I might actually pick this one up. That's a good idea. I should do that. Finally, from loved authors, I must mention Ava Reid with her newest book, A Study in Drowning. This one I'm very excited to get into, not just because Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid is one of my favorite books, but also my friend Allie annotated this for me, and I cannot wait to see her experience with it, seeing as how Ava Reid is one of the few authors that we actually agree on. In this, we are following our main character Effie, who is going to an architectural college when she would rather be studying literature, but this world doesn't believe that women are able to do that. However, she is given the opportunity to remodel her favorite author's home, so she snatches that, and whilst there, ends up meeting a man from the literature college who is working to prove that her favorite author is actually a fraud, and she can't stand it. I'm so excited for this. I've heard it does have a little bit of religious themes going on in the story as well, which is something I've really enjoyed in Reid's previous work. I've also really only heard positive things about this. I cannot wait to get to it. I cannot wait to see Allie's thoughts, and hopefully this will be another one where we agree on the entire reading experience. We shall see. That's it for my 10 books to read in 2024, but I also have my 12 book recommendations from 12 friends. I'm gonna be completely honest here, a lot of these I don't know much of a synopsis about them, or I really only know like a few keywords, and that's why I was like, okay, sure, why not? So take these summaries with a grain of salt. Starting at the top from 𝗖cie at 𝗖cie_Read, she recommended me Sister Maiden Monster by... That's a good question. 𝗖cie at 𝗖cie_Read recommended me Sister Maiden Monster by 𝗖cie RH. This one I originally put on my TBR because of the cover. I don't know what's going on here, but I'm intrigued. Not to mention it was a horror book that originally was getting a lot of hype, but I then heard pretty much only negative things and knocked it off my TBR. 𝗖cie has put it back though, because this is one that I know for a fact has some of the weirdest descriptions in it, and I think she's intrigued to see if I like it or not. And I am also intrigued. I have no idea where this is gonna go. Another one that I don't know where it will go, recommended by Jan at Jan Agaton, is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. Sorry, the angle might have changed, but I had a phone call. I'm really nervous for this because this is a romantasy book that was getting recommended around as a way to move on from a book hangover after reading Fourth Wing. And I've had no interest in Fourth Wing at all. Everything I hear about it honestly kind of like is anti-interest for me. Not to mention, I've learned that I don't really like romantasy books that much. I prefer fantasy romance. I'm really nervous on this. It's also over 500 pages. The 2 main reviews I've heard of it, Jan loved it, 5 stars, best book of the year. Kitty hated it, DNF'd really quickly. And these are both booktubers who, like, my opinions sometimes agree and sometimes disagree. I have no idea whose I'm gonna fall in line with, but it'll be interesting. I think this is like an enemies to lovers story. There might be some fae elements, which is another thing. It's kind of an anti-buzzword for me, honestly. And then I think dragons, maybe? I'm not really sure. We'll find out together. The one crossover we have, Jess recommended me Such Sharp Teeth, which obviously I already talked about, and that works out great. 2 birds, 1 stone. Can't wait for it one way or another. I'm fairly certain Jess gave this 5 stars, and she also gave Cackle 5 stars, so I feel like it's gonna work out well for me. The other one that I'm very nervous about on this list is from Emmy, and she recommended me The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. Another romantasy book, this one with vampires, but we're following a woman who is human but was raised by a vampire and enters into this like game tournament thing, going up against other vampires. Also has a strong romance plot line. I gave her the heads up that I wasn't sure how this one would go, but she did say that it had pretty strong world building and political intrigue, which those do work for me. While compared to fae being an anti-buzzword, vampires I'm more ambivalent about. It's still not really like a keyword that I cling to. Maybe I should put the 2 of these in like a vlog. That might be entertaining for you guys. One that I'm really interested for is Whalefall by Daniel Kraus, which Tiffany recommended me. And this is like a survival / grief horror following a man who gets swallowed by a whale. And I think the entire book takes place while he's trying to escape said whale, but also looking back on the grief he has for his father who recently passed. I've heard to read this as like a sci-fi horror version of Project Hail Mary. I didn't mind Project Hail Mary, but the writing style was more what detracted from my enjoyment. This I think is a lot shorter, and grief horror is something I do have an interest in reading, so we'll see. I'm a little bit more hopeful for this one, but I have heard pretty middle of the road things. From Destiny, I'm very excited to get to A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Foz Meadows. I heard a ton of praise for this from Jess at Books Past Bedtime, and so I've been really wanting to try it out. This one I think is a queer fantasy romance where, that's right, we're following a man who is originally intended to marry this woman, but then it is found out that he actually prefers men. Whilst his family is ready to disown him, the neighboring country actually says, okay, that's fine. Why don't you marry our son then? This marriage is obviously an alliance, but at the same time, there are people working against said alliance. And so there's, some drama, some danger, some mystery going on there. And I'm really interested. This sounds like a fantastical version of Winter's Orbit, which was more sci-fi. And I can't wait. I'm very, very excited. Destiny bought this one for me, so she is a sweetheart. And perhaps we might actually buddy read this together. I'm so excited for it though. Up next is a book which I don't really know a lot about. I saw like a tiny blurb. Em was the one who recommended it. Immediately got me intrigued. The Guild of Stories by Joel Gomez. The tiny blurb I heard about this is that it's following a Black lesbian vampire. I think she's like a little morally gray, but it kind of pushes against some of the more evil views people had on vampires at the time. I don't know a lot, but I'm really interested. Never heard anybody else talk about it, so I'm really intrigued to see how this goes. In comparison to the next one, which I've heard a ton of positive things for, Sash recommended me The Keeper of Night by Kylie Lee Baker. This is one that I think Jan actually absolutely adored. A woman who is like half Shinigami, half Reaper, a Reaper, duh. I think this one is also set in like 1890s, early 1900 Japan, and that's a setting I don't think I've ever read from before. Really intrigued to see how this one goes. I've heard lots of positive things about Kylie Lee Baker's work, but I've never picked any up myself, so we'll finally be doing that here. Next up is one to start a series and also add to my manga TBR. Bree recommended me Hakumi and Mikochi by Takuda Ashiki. I don't know anything about this. It looks adorable though, and I've been wanting an excuse to check out more manga series, so Bree gave it to me. That's all I know. That's all I'm going in with. It looks really cute. Hopefully it'll be a fun time. It's kind of giving me like Fern Gully vibes, which I'm very much into. These last three are recommendations from my best friends. So on one hand, they're books that they want me to like, but on the other hand, one of these I'm fairly certain she's just trying to punish me. So first up, Allie recommended me Illuminate by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is a sci-fi story that I believe is told in like a mixed media format. I don't actually know what the plot itself is about. I just know everybody talking about the fact that it's like mixed media, and I think it also has a really good audiobook. But now that I think about it, I think that's all I know. This works with the fact that I want to try and check out more sci-fi. So thanks Al for that. I believe she loved the series and is hoping that I will too. Fingers crossed I do. Next is the one that I'm pretty sure Kat read this, hated it. I think Allie also read it and hated it. And like, they're trying to pull me into that same circle. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. Lucy Foley is a thriller author who I've just never been really drawn to. She got really big for the guest list. I heard a lot more positive things on the guest list than I ever did on the Paris Apartment. And as I mentioned, I'm pretty sure both of them read it and did not enjoy. So they're kind of pulling me into the rant circle. We'll see how it goes. It might be an entertaining reading experience if nothing else. Finally, from our friend Molly, she recommended me In the Heart of the Sea, The Tragedy of the Whale Ship Essex by Nathaniel Philbrick, which is her favorite shipwreck book. Apparently, I learned recently that Molly loves books about shipwrecks. And seeing as how I'm really the only other one that reads a fair amount of nonfiction, she tossed it in. She actually sent me this copy for Christmas. That works out well. I will, you know, get it read for this list as well as get it read off of my own TBR, and perhaps I will enjoy it. I've never read a shipwreck book. I've never heard about the tragedy of the whale ship 𝗖cie, but I'll admit I am intrigued. I really want to know where this is gonna go. It's just a little outside my usual comfort zone. All right, so those 21 books, actually I miscounted previously. Those 21 books are my TBR for 2024. So here's hoping that I will actually get all of them read, but who knows? Wish me luck in the comments down below, as well as leave me a pirate flag emoji. I don't know why pirates are on my mind. I don't think technically pirates were involved in this, but it's in there. Also could leave me a whale. One of those. All right, y'all, thank you so much for coming to my channel today. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. I have all my socials as well as a few ways you can support me linked in the description. I come out with videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye.